Hello, and welcome to Rasa Office Hours. It's going to be a little before the stream catches up with where we are in time. And today, our very first office hours of 2022, I am being joined by Lauren, who is our product evangelist. Is that right?
Yep, product
Yeah.
evangelist.
So I think maybe not everyone has heard about product evangelists and what y'all do. So do you want to start by telling us a little bit about what your day to day is like? What do you work on? What's your
Yeah,
job?
sure. So a product evangelist, the term essentially means someone who spreads the good news. I think that's the best way to describe it. Another way to put it maybe would be kind of like a brand hype man. So I'm doing a lot of work to sort of tell people about Rasa, explain conversational AI and the value it gives to our customers, both externally and I think in the future also I want to do even more internal work to make sure that we're also all hyped about the product that we're building. So does that kind of describe the role effectively?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And you mentioned that you work with our customers as well, so you have a lot of depth of knowledge about enterprise applications in particular.
Definitely. I think enterprise is probably where at the moment the most of my focus is going right now because we want to also we have really great open source tools. Fact. I mean, I think that's why many of you come to Rasa in the first place. But we also want to build out tools for the enterprise and also specifically, I think, for those non-developer persona types that we have in every single product that or project that are also pretty important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a lot gets built without like product managers. Oh, I just realized I have a light turned off. That's okay. We'll have a dramatic side lighting. I was like, why does it look weird? First stream of the year. So, something that we're going to be doing new in 2022, and this is also a surprise for Lauren, so hopefully not an unpleasant one, is I'd really like to ask y'all a question of the day for office hours. So, and you won't be able to see this, Lauren, but I'm putting it up on the screen now. Boop. The question of the day for today, and if you follow Alex, our CEO, on Twitter, you might have already seen this. Hi, Victor.
Mm.
Is if we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you and why? So, a very broad question. I definitely have lots of answers to this. Yeah, so if anyone wants to, hi, welcome to the stream. If anyone wants to offer some particular guidance or ideas in the chat, we would love to hear it. So one more time, I'll pop this up, and I'll be popping it up to the stream as well. If we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you, and why? Oh, I don't know. Do you have an answer, Lauren, or do you have a thing that you'd like to see?
Um, I think, and this could already exist. I am relatively new to not Rasa. I started in November 3rd, but I think one of the things I love to see are really good integrations. And so I think there's so many other products out there that we can integrate with. And I think that's really the value of conversational AI when you can't just answer a question, but you can integrate with something and give people even more information kind of just like that. So I think I would love to see more integrations and partnerships within Rasa. I think that's the feature I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I think one of the things that we do well, at least in terms of an open source product, is because we're very flexible, right? Your action server can be doing anything. It's easy for you to build the integrations, but maybe not like fast. I shouldn't say easy. It's possible, but perhaps could be more possible if there was a little bit more product support. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Gustavo says, "Welcome back." Oh, thank you. So, while we're waiting for questions to come in or answers to the question of the day that I will put up one more time, I'm still trying to figure out like what a good tempo would be here. Maybe I can have it like animated and it comes like from somewhere. I don't know. I didn't have enough time to do all the things that I wanted to do. Isn't that life? So, Lauren, while we're waiting for that, I would like to know. I ask a lot of people this, and I think it's such an interesting question. What's the best chatbot you've ever used? Or it could be your favorite or the one that you like brought you a lot of delight.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So any type of this comes with a story as well. I'll preface that as well because it's not the most advanced chatbot ever, but a pizza chatbot. And the reason being is any of us who have worked in kind of, let's say, the pre-sales environment, or if you're kind of describe to someone how conversational AI is, working, I realized that many of us are using the exact same demo, and we're all building pizza bots for, new teams that we're trying to teach, exactly how the system works, because it's really easy. You have a product that you want to order, you have to collect information,
Mhm.
you have to collect, what kind of toppings you want in this pizza. And so it's just this classic, perfect example of conversational AI. So anytime I see the opportunity to order a pizza bot or pizza via a pizza bot, I use it because it brings me so much joy.
Definitely. I mean, I don't want to like ask you to talk about specific brands if you're not comfortable doing that, but is there one in particular that you're like, they did a real good job?
I think there was one, I'm just double checking that it's still running, but I think there was
Yeah.
one that Pizza Hut actually built. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Yeah. That's the one. I think you can also order it via Facebook Messenger. So they're on a couple different channels too. So that
Nice.
was a cool moment when you actually see the thing that you've been building only theoretically to teach people actually working in live is a good feeling. But can I ask the same question back at you? What's your favorite?
Oh, that's a great question. Also, for those of you who are not familiar, Pizza Hut is an American pizza
Ooh,
chain
yeah.
restaurant. I don't know, maybe everybody knows that. I don't have a really good
No,
sense.
fair to point out.
Yeah. So probably the first time I used a chatbot and was like, wow, this saved me a lot of time was it was internal, so I can't not at Rasa, but like somewhere else. I can't really talk about the details specifically, but it was for um, you know, doing an activity that you'd need to do not very often, but when you did, you needed to talk to a lot of people to make it happen, and you needed to like fill out a lot of forms. And there were a lot of moving parts. And what the chatbot did was that it you know, you talk to it and you're like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing, and it knew all the steps that you needed to do. And if you needed to go like fill out a form, it would give you a link, or if it could, it would just like collect the information and then fill it out for you, and then update things throughout all of the systems. And that saved me emailing people a bunch of stuff, and saved me, yeah, probably a half a day's work. That sounds ridiculous, but it's very true. And it saved me so much time and was just like such a smooth experience. And I think, if I wasn't somebody who did software stuff and I was just like a person trying to get something done, I probably wouldn't even have noticed, right? I would have just been like, oh, yeah, it was fast, it was fine. Duh, it should work like that. But as someone who is really interested in language technology, I was like, ooh, okay, I'm on board with chatbots again. And that was, well before I even heard of Rasa, honestly. But yeah.
Cool. Do you ever notice when you just because you're in the industry, every time I encounter one kind of in the wild, I feel the need to spend a lot of time on it to see if I can break it. I don't know if you have that same feeling, but
Yeah.
it's maybe it's a problem, but every time I see one, I'm like, ooh, I know how these kind of work for the most part. Let's see if it does the things I want it to do. Let's go.
Definitely. I
So
can also
sorry if anyone I've bought has gotten some weird questions, but
and I think that's also a persona that you should think about when you're designing a chatbot, right? Particularly if it's, say something that's focused in the technology space. It's going to be used by technologists. They're going to poke at it. Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I also know why things go wrong often, or at least I have like a pretty good guess. I'm like, you didn't do sense disambiguation, or you are assuming people are going to say something that they're not going to say. Which is, ooh, one sec. I've got a okay, we've dropped some frames, but hopefully still is very watchable. It looks like I'm having a little bit of connectivity issues, but we haven't disconnected. So,
okay, good.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And it's maybe, I don't want to say that it's more frustrating, because it's very frustrating to try and use a chatbot and it just doesn't work. But it's real frustrating when a chatbot doesn't work and I know I would fix it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Can I file a bug report for y'all? Like, can I tell you what's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
This I believe. Yeah, I think that's maybe what also makes the space so exciting to work in, and is because there's so much room for improvement. I think people come to virtual agents, chatbots, et cetera, whatever name you want to use, with such a low bar of expectations. So you can really kind of delight and surprise people if you can actually perform at a good level, because the bar is already not that high, just based on the history of where the industry has been. But I think that's really exciting because there's so much potential there.
Yeah, it was perhaps, pushed down dramatically, say around 2016. Hi, Trip. Welcome to the stream. Well, again, feel free if y'all have questions, pop them in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. And also, we have a question of the day, which is if we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you and why? So if you have any thoughts there, we'd love to hear it. But I'm wondering, Lauren, what advice do you have for someone who is trying to figure out whether or not a project should be a chatbot in the first place? Because I think this is where unfixable errors happen. If that makes sense. This is where people end up wasting a lot of time and being very frustrated.
Yeah, I think the very first question you should probably ask yourself is, could this be a form filler? And I think that's one thing that I've often seen. Can this be a form filler? That's one thing. Are you just trying to replace a search engine? And if you're trying to do either of these two things, that's an immediate point where you should think, okay, is conversational AI the right solution for me? Because that's not the real strength of conversational AI, is just replacing things that already exist. And I think those are two things that you should already knock out and consider, okay, why am I doing this? Is it just because I have budget and I want to be in the AI space? Rather, take a second and think about, okay, I think there's a conversational AI use case for nearly everything. If you take the time to think about it. But those are two things I've often seen where, exactly as you said, where things can kind of go wrong before it started, because the end result ends up being just a replacement for another tool that's maybe a bit easier to implement.
Yeah. I think a good example of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of those things that can be a form filler and is maybe not the best choice is something where I'm filling out a form and I'm looking at options. So I always like to think about booking flights, because I'm not traveling that much, maybe obviously. But when I was, I had, pretty strong opinions about what the best type of flight would be. And I'd want to see all my options and then consider them and like pick what would be best for me, right? Like, maybe I really care about how much carbon is being created and I'm trying to like absolutely minimize that however I can. So with that in mind, a chatbot where I'd have to be like, no, actually, is there anything in the morning? Is there anything in the evening? Is there anything that's shorter? Would make that process take longer and be really
Rasa transformation. And that kind of introduced me actually to Rasa. And I thought, wow, what a cool company. I liked that it was open source and that there was no black box, because that's something that I'd seen in a lot of different products. And as someone who's really curious about how things work, it's challenging when you can't dig any deeper.
We've just disconnected. One sec.
Oh, okay.
Come on, reconnect. Reconnecting. Disconnected again.
No worries, we'll figure it out.
Right. Reconnecting. Cool. No, I really wanted to share a story.
Don't worry.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're good. Okay. So let's pick up where we were at, and let's see. Are we still live on the same channel? I'm just gonna double check, because sometimes it creates new stuff for it. Okay. I think we're back. So you were talking about we're working as a conversational designer, you were working as an analyst, you were looking at flows.
Yep. And Rasa kept popping up essentially as a competitor product in a nutshell. And so I, of course, as part of, your job there, you think, oh, I should do a bit of competitor analysis here. And I became ultimately just really intrigued with what Rasa was doing. I think, you always want to be on the cutting edge of things. And I think Rasa was really kind of, actually, I remember watching some of your videos, Rachel. I was trying to understand what a transformer was. And oh my goodness, there's someone that's actually explaining it to someone like myself. And so that was, for me, really exciting, just to see that I might have the chance at this company to get an even broader understanding of this industry that I'm working with, also going in a more technical direction. So that's in progress. We're still working on that piece, but I think that's really exciting. And the biggest perk, I would say, also about Rasa, which was for me, I'm currently calling in from Munich, Germany, but I'm originally from California. And so the cool thing about Rasa is that it's a remote company. So half of my team is in, California or Texas or somewhere in America, and I'm sitting in Germany. So there's no issue if I get to visit my family at home. work California time for a bit and then come back to Munich where I'm living. So I love that piece about it. Just that flexibility is really unique.
Also, we're hiring.
Yes.
If that
On
sounds
that note.
appealing to you, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like, oh, okay, the number of dropped frames is going down,
Ooh,
so
okay.
maybe our connection's better. We'll find out. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I don't know, this may or may not be news to everyone. So, IBM was sort of one of the very earliest places where a lot of research into machine learning and artificial intelligence was done in a commercial setting. So I remember this is gonna date me, but I remember when I was younger, the Watson winning Jeopardy, and that was like
Yep.
one of the seminal moments in AI and machine learning as a field, being like, hey, here's a thing that's really cool. And I believe it was an information retrieval system, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's a I don't know if that was helpful or not to talk a little bit about the history of IBM. Um, a little bit of background there. Okay, I'm not getting any other notifications about frames being dropped. Maybe our connection issues are fixed. We'll find out, I guess, over time. Yeah. So, yeah, it sounds like a really interesting journey, starting with linguistics, something we have in common there, and then moving into sales, and now really taking a little bit of more of a technical turn. So as you've been building chatbots, I wonder what was the thing that you would go back and tell yourself when you were just first starting? What's the advice you would give?
Good question. I think, let me just think about a way to word this. Going back, we talked about this topic a little bit earlier because you get in a lot of situations where you might be working with a client and they have a very fixed vision about what a virtual agent should do. And sometimes as the service provider, you feel the need to say, yes, we can do this perfectly. That's a great use case, sure. But in reality, sometimes I think that's really ultimately when you're in consulting or in services, that's really what you're being paid for is your opinion. And I think it's also important to be able to, stand up and say, hey, actually, I've seen this, let's look at your use case for a quick second and make sure that this is valid. And let's make sure that you're delivering, because so many virtual agents get dropped in the POC stage. And that's something that just hurts me in the heart a little bit, because it doesn't have to be that way. Because I think if you take the time and really validate your use case and make sure that you're providing also business value back to the business, then it can move forward and go beyond this kind of POC purgatory that people seem to land in. So I think looking back, I would have said, have a stronger, really say your opinion out loud and get it out there and help drive the project in the direction that will give the business value.
And for those who aren't familiar with the term, POC is proof of concept. So this would be like so in Rasa terms, this would be like right before you show it to somebody, right? So this is like the conversation kind of works and you're ready to start your CDD. And obviously it's not the best it could possibly be, because this is, it's like your little mini cake that you're going to bake into a big cake. I don't know.
I like that analogy. That's great.
The sample, or like, I think a better example would be like, how architects make those little paper houses?
Yes.
And they're
my gosh,
what
mini models. Like. I love those. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that. And I feel like one of the biggest challenges in the space is that I talk about this a lot. So this may be repetition for you, Lauren, I'm sorry. People know how to have conversations, right? Yeah. Like, I know what it should be like. And when you don't follow my expectations of what a conversation should be like, I am immediately upset. And like, even though I know, of course, no virtual agent has intention or, will or anything like that, it feels like you're being mean to me and it feels like you're being uncooperative. And I don't like that as a conversational partner. I am, again, and another little sneaky peek, I'm working on some videos on pragmatics, which is meaning in context. That I think will be very helpful for folks who are sort of running into those sort of problems. And you're like, I know these conversations aren't working, but I'm having a hard time, describing what's happening here and figuring out what I need to do to fix it. So that's something that I'm working on right now.
Cool. I look forward. I think that's another cool thing about working at Rasa is there's so many people that like yourself that come from research. So you really get a good, even as a, as someone who's not sort of involved at a highly technical point at this very moment with my current job role, I think you get to learn so much just through your colleagues. And that's something I absolutely love here.
Definitely. I feel like I've grown a lot at Rasa as well. And just to hopefully, oh no, I'm getting another notification. Are you still being dropped? No. No? Okay, I think we're good. I think we fixed the connection issues. I don't know that it's going to be retroactive. I'm very worried that some of this video is going to be unwatchable. Anyway, for those of you who are just tuning in, we have a question of the day, which is, if we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you and why? So feel free to, drop that in the chat, or if you wanted to tweet at us at Rasa_HQ, that would also be a great way to get in contact if you're a Twitter person. We'd like to know, what do you want? Because we know what we want to build, but we want to make sure they're aligned. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. Another question for you, Lauren. So you've been at Rasa a little bit here. You've seen, you've been working with some of our customers. You've been, looking at stuff internally. You've been working on your own chatbots, and of course, you have that background in building chatbots. So, what is the ideal team, right? So I'm CEO of Rachel Enterprises. I'm like, we need a chatbot. I'm going to hire headcount. Let's say I have five headcount. Who do I hire?
Okay, this is a hotly disputed topic. So I will say this is guidelines for personas and people that you might need. Ultimately every project and domain is different. So you might need different levels. And I would say at the moment we see two kind of different teams, or this is my experience. You either have a highly technical team that's really interested in conversational AI, machine learning, et cetera, and they go at it without just kind of the UX or the design people or the domain people, and they just start building without the UX piece. And sometimes that can go down a bit of a dangerous path because I think it's important to have both perspectives in this project team. And then there's often another group of people, which might be a ton of domain experts that are running a conversation or a call center of some sort, and they want to be able to automate some of these, let's say low hanging fruits or these easier processes so that they can focus on the more complex things, but they're lacking then your core developer pieces. So I think with the Rasa project, what would be important to have is, of course, you're probably going to need some backend developers to handle your integrations. You're probably also going to want a machine learning expert because Rasa does have the really cool ability to customize your machine learning pipeline. So of course, that's a great opportunity. You want to have that person in there. From a backend perspective, the number of people will depend on the size of your team. And I would say we'll talk about personas, because how many people per team will depend on where you are in the process, et cetera. You might also want just some additional developers with Python coding tools abilities. I think that's also important with Rasa when you're talking about building out custom actions, et cetera. Those people also need to be present. Anyone else I'm kind of missing on the backend side, Rachel, on the developer side?
Well, I guess it's question mark whether or not you'd call this backend or not, but depending on where you're deploying it, maybe a web dev.
Ooh, yep, definitely.
A web dev would have been able to answer Deshaun's question about WebSocket.
True. You need these people as well. And then I feel like I'm splitting these into two different groups, because really these groups need to interact, the highly technical development team and also the team that's really focusing on the user experience. And then on the other side of things, I would say you're definitely going to want someone that is a conversational analyst. So that could be someone like my prior role, where you're able to talk with the technical people, but you're also able to talk with the domain experts and kind of explain things on a high level of how things are working. So that's kind of this conversational analyst role. Someone who can implement dialogue, but maybe isn't doing any of the integrations, maybe doesn't have so much Python experience, but they can at least move some things around, make some code edits. I think that's an important persona to have. Another one I would say would be a designer. So this is going to be actually the people that are mapping out the dialogue flow in a team. So there's multiple different tools you can do this. Visio, I think there's a Google tool as well. Blueprints, if you're also using enterprise, little marketing pitch right there. And I think that's also a really important role. And that's really a nuanced position that's kind of really taken off in the last couple of years. I think actually, if you ever get a chance to read Conversations with Things, that's a great book. Hold on, I think I actually have.
Kathy Pearls?
That is Diana Diebel and Rebecca Evanho wrote
Yes,
that book.
right.
That's all about kind of it's a really good guide if you're interested in getting into conversational AI and kind of that role of designer. I think also necessary is going to be your domain experts. So these are the people that have the knowledge that actually needs to be put into this. They're the people that know what these conversations look like in real life and want to then automate it. So these domain experts are absolutely essential, and they also kind of bring to this project to the designer as well this brand voice. Some people merge that with personality. Some people say they're different things, but that brand voice, that personality piece, those, as well as the content itself, is going to come from your domain experts. And then the last one, which I think is some people look at it as a nice to have. I like to think that it should be a necessity, but it depends on, your project budget. I think this is the person that gets cut out of budget sometimes, and I wish they didn't. And this is going to be your UX designer. So the person that's really looking at human computer interaction and making sure that it's a user-centric design. Yes. So I think that's the other personnel that I would love to see in more projects, but I just don't.
UX people are absolute jewels, beautiful gems, every single one of them. Yeah, I would also love to see more UX folks working on projects, and particularly if you're doing conversation-driven development. That works so well with especially like a user experience research role. Like you'll just be like, we're doing this, and they'll be like, I know what all of these things are. So I'm good. I really like working with UX people. They just make everything better. I'm getting like weirdly teary thinking about UX. Sorry, I don't know where this is coming from.
It's okay. This is, I mean, this is the tea. This is the tea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm always excited to work with UX person every single time. They're fabulous. Yeah, so just to sort of recap some of the skills that you want to have represented in your team. So obviously, like databases, machine learning, Python for building out your integrations and everything. Maybe a web dev for someone who can do front end work, depending on where you're hosting it. If you're just like integrating with like Facebook Messenger, you don't really need to do much. But if you want to build like something custom or on your website, probably a web dev. And then your conversational analyst, someone who can really look through and understand the conversations. Your conversation designer, who can sort of represent your brand voice and design these flows, the happy paths, if you will. Yep. And then of course your wonderful UX person to make sure it's a good thing to use and not a bad thing. Not that it's going to necessarily be bad if you don't have a UX person, but they'll help. They'll help a lot.
Yeah. And don't forget domain experts too. I think these are also really important people to have.
The domain experts, thank you.
Because they also help you understand the scope of your project and where, they actually have the real conversation with people that we want to model. So I think they're good people to have in your project as well.
Absolutely. I can't believe I forgot them.
No, all good. No, I think I'm impressed you remembered all of that and just like boom, 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 right out one after another. Yeah. I'd actually be curious to ask the audience as well if they have, let's say, differing opinions as well. If there's someone I missed, or because I think this is a well debated topic, so I'm always interested to hear different opinions and also inform myself on what I might have missed.
Definitely, yeah. So chime in if there's other skills you think are important to be represented in your chatbot team. And we do have a couple questions. This one is more like a comment, so I'm going to do this one first and then pop back up. Morris says, you're doing some great stuff. I remember studying the Sherdloo project in the 1970s. Oh, wow, that's a throwback for sure. And wanting to build something useful, but never did. I would say it was much harder in the 70s to build useful conversational agents. I would say it was even harder in 2017 than it is today, just because transformers in particular as a machine learning architecture are very helpful for the sorts of things that you need to do, not all the time in a chatbot, but often enough that when you can't do them, it creates a lot of frustration. So I'm particularly thinking about like digressions or people saying things in a way that you just didn't expect them to say things, and very effective ways to handle that with machine learning that just weren't there even when I was doing my work. And then we have a question from Shawal. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I am guessing on the pronunciation there. I integrated my chatbot into Microsoft Teams. How can I see users' information in the database? Only sender ID information is displayed. I also want time information. So I believe you will need to get that in the connector. And I'm guessing that you're using R. Do we have a Microsoft Teams connector? Microsoft Bot Framework. So I'll just pull this up. Oh, I don't actually need the forms information right now. That's the endpoint password. So if information like timestamps is not included in the, did you say you wanted timestamps? You'd never said you wanted timestamp. No, you did. Yeah, I want time information. I think the time information should be included in your tracker store on the Rasa side, but if you want it from Microsoft, I believe you might need to edit the connector to include more information in the payload. I haven't connected with Microsoft Teams before, so I'm not deeply familiar with the connector, but I would get the time information. And it's going to depend on the API endpoint that the Microsoft Teams has, which again, I have not used. So you might need to dig into their documentation a little bit to get that to work. And you can also ask on the forums if someone else has done that. I know we tend to get quite a few questions about Microsoft Teams. I just have not previously used it because I don't have a Teams account, I don't think. Yeah. I know that was a little bit of a wishy answer, but hopefully that answers your question. You said you're working on a Slack bot right now. Have you done a Teams bot? I'm imagining you didn't at Watson.
No, no, well, actually, we did have that's actually why I ran into Rasa in the first place, because even IBM Consulting can work with different products. They're not, let's say, attached to Watson products, but no, Microsoft I never encountered yet. But that would make sense, of course, if you probably started with asking Microsoft how that works, I can imagine. But not yet.
Yeah, so I would double check what's in your connector and what you're getting in your payload from Microsoft Teams, and maybe asking for more information with each request, and you'd edit the connector file to ask for specific stuff. So we just have a couple minutes. I feel bad because the connection problems, I think, were making it really hard to watch earlier in the stream. So my apologies if anyone tried to tune in earlier and was like, this is an issue. I don't know what it is, although it sounds like there was another call that was going on my network that has stopped recently. So that might be it, unfortunately. Not much I can do about that. So for the last couple minutes, first I'm going to ask the question of the day again, and then I've got a question for you, Lauren. So the question of the day is, if we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you and why? So feel free to pop that in the chat. We want to know. And Lauren, if you could give people, well, I'll give you a choice here. So if there's anything that you just want to tell the Rasa community and have them know, now's your time. Or if you wanted something more concrete, if you could give people who are, let's say they have a project, they know that it's a good fit for a chatbot, they're ready to get started. If you could give people in that position one piece of information, what would you tell them?
Ooh, one person. I would say, I don't want this to sound too marketing, but talk to us now. Talk to us now. I think reach out and connect with our, either our sales team or, I think you would first probably ask for a demo. Get involved, because I think what we're doing here is some really, we'd love to meet customers at the beginning of their journey. That's I think for us, because I think many people try lots of other products and then they realize, these don't scale. We need something like Rasa, but it's actually a lot easier and doesn't have the migration process involved as well if you come talk to us at the beginning. Because I think if you are building, if you have dreams and ambition to build something for scale that's going to reach a lot of people, Rasa is a good choice for you. So I hope that didn't sound like too much of a pitch. I do believe this, but I think that would be, I would say, just reach out, get involved, and ask us questions now, because I think we're happy to explain a little bit more about our product and our system, and it's worth the ask.
Definitely. Yeah. So reach out to us. And I would say that's specifically if you're building in an enterprise setting. If you're, building a cool hobby project, you don't need Rasa Enterprise. These features are not relevant to you.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. Nick wants to know, Oh, wait, we got two questions. So one is from Vishwas. When will Rasa support the Apple M1 hardware sets? That's dependent on the TensorFlow team, and we don't control them. I don't know. That sounds like a little bit glib, I guess. We would love to. It's really a TensorFlow compatibility issue. Everyone in the machine learning space is struggling with this right now. I wish we could just fix it, but unfortunately, we can't. And then a question from Nick. When will Rasa X be compatible with Rasa 3.x? Soon, TM. I'm really not trying to hide anything from you. It's just I don't, even though we have like a timeline, things can change, things might move up, things might move back, and I don't want to tell you a date and then have it be wrong, and you were maybe planning around it. I want to avoid people being disappointed and upset. So know that it is a high priority for us, and that we are working on it. Great. So we are just at time now. Sorry about the connection issues. I think I'll yell at Xfinity and see what they say today and see if that helps at all. It's not going to. They're not going to change anything. But thanks so much for joining today, Lauren. It's been a fabulous conversation. I hope it was watchable. Most of it. I certainly enjoyed it. Upcoming things. So on Friday, my live stream is going to be a little bit more of a talk. It's going to be why there is no best chatbot framework. So I don't know. I'm sure you've all been in a situation where you ask people like, what's the best way to do this? And people are like, it depends. So it depends. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that it depends on to, again, help you if you're in that sort of planning stage for chatbots. And then next week, there won't be an office hours. We have our company offsite, so everyone will be busy, including me. And then next Friday, I might read a paper. I might bring the paper reading group back up. There's been a paper I've been really meaning to dig into a little bit more with y'all, and I think it could be interesting. So potentially reading group next Friday. This Friday, we're going to be talking about why there is no best chatbot framework. And then next Wednesday, there will be no office hours. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, Lauren. As always, if you've got questions, the forums. And feel free to reach out to us if you have information that you want to share about our question of the day, which is, if we could add anything to Rasa in 2022, what would you want us to build for you or why? So feel free to, add us on Twitter, LinkedIn. We monitor our LinkedIn. So any place you want to reach out to us, please feel free. We'd like to know. We're curious. Tell us. All right. So thank you so much. Thanks for joining. And